May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Puba of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Len Brackett. Len is the founder of East Wind Inc. You can see it online at East Wind Inc. INC. And it's a company that builds authentic Japanese homes in America and does other types of work. As I mentioned in the podcast, I was visiting him once in his lovely home and shop, and very, very authentic Japanese home. And when I say authentic, I mean traditional, with the wonderful woodwork and shoji screens and tatami and anyway. And in his shop, he had all this beautiful wood lined up and planing it, and he had somebody working with him very closely, and it was for the Japanese tea garden at Golden Gate Park. That was impressive. See, they hired him. But Len has a Zen history. He is the brother of Jenny Baker, who married Richard Baker. So he's privy to lots of inside stuff there. And I met him at Tassajara in 1967. And he went to Reed College in Portland. Many Zen students came from Reed College during Suzuki, after Suzuki, and really before Suzuki, Gary Snyder and Philip Whalen. I've got a page for Reed College on Cuke.com. And Reed had a Zendo there, and it was Len who got the Zendo going in a house, where people lived and they sat. And after he moved on, it continued. And Suzuki went there and gave a talk in very early 1971. And he had a terrible pain and on the second day, I think, and had to fly back right away to San Francisco and get an operation on his gallbladder, have it taken out, I guess. And it turned out it was cancerous, although they didn't tell anybody that. And the doctors thought they got it all. But, he died. That was like March, maybe. And he died the following December. Anyway, Len has an interesting history in the United States and in Japan. He is also somebody who I'm going to have to make a page for on Cuke.com now. He's somebody, I've been in touch with him and everything, and there are places he's mentioned and about him on Cuke.com, but I just never made a central page. I never had an interview with him. I'd really like to get this podcast transcribed. Oh, God, would I like to get a lot of these podcasts transcribed. And Charlie Wilson from Engaged Wisdom, which is working with the San Francisco Zen Center now. It's a archiving company run by Zen Center Zen students, but it's a business. It has some very, very high-end transcribing voice recognition software that he's developed using, it's like way beyond Dragon, naturally speaking. He says no, nobody's using that anymore. And he's getting he's getting it together so that others can use it, and I'm waiting for it to try to help with transcribing the interviews, the podcasts. When you use voice recognition, you've got to still go through it and make corrections, but it gives you a head start. And the better it is, the better your head start. So I'm very interested in that. That in a sense, we're just starting out with Len. How many years after the fact just shows, that this oral, written, spoken history that is Cuke Archives, it is still going strong. We won't get to everything, but I'm frequently dealing with people who were there back then who had a serious relationship with Suzuki and Zen Center, and I'm just getting in contact with them, or they were at Tassajara for, a month and have great stories. It just seems endless. And this oral, written, spoken history is to me and to many others just as important as the Suzuki lectures, the audio, the transcripts that are archived on shunyusuzuki.com. Anyway, all right, that's enough of all that. That's stuff I wanted to say. So look, as soon as we've had our pause to meditate, we'll give Len a call. And, when we do give Len a call, there's a little problem at first. He said, he lives sort of in the country on the edge of Nevada City, and he says they barely have a phone line and or cellular connection, but we got it pretty good. But if it starts off, that's frequently in these podcasts. It's not just as simple as somebody saying hello and I say hi, and then we get going. Maybe 1 out of 4 or something has some problem at first. So, but that won't matter but it'll, sometimes I have to take a lot of time right at the first to get it all smooth or somewhat smooth to get going, and then it's easier to prepare the podcast after that. All right. So here we go with our pause to meditate, and then we'll give Len a call. And you'll hear about his hawk then, too. That's really amazing.
Hello.
Hi, Len.
Is this David?
This is David.
All right. How are you?
Okay, good. We finally made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you come to California ever?
No.
No.
I haven't been back to America since I came here in 2013.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. 9 years. Okay. Well, if you do come to America, I'd love to see you. I'd love to see your face.
Yeah, and I would, very, very closest friend, Michael Katz, is living right there.
That's right. Yeah.
I'd love to come up there. So, Len, aside from all the horrible problems in this dying planet, what are you up to?
Well, so what am I doing? I'm 75. So I was over in the shop today for about 5 hours working, milling material. And I kind of work in a desultory fashion. You know, when I feel like it, I go over and work, or if they really need me there. I have an apprentice, Matthew Peters, who's Belgian. And it only took us 4 years to get him a green card, but we finally succeeded after a huge amount of money spent on lawyers and endless bureaucratic bullshit. We finally got him a green card with his family. And I have given him East Wind. Didn't sell it to him. I gave it to him. And he's staying in my house. I am living in a little cottage across the creek, which is only 600 square feet, which is fine for me. And I'm at the top of the hill, and he's down at the canyon in the creek. And Matthew is running East Wind and doing a wonderful job.
Well, you're in Nevada City, California, right?
Yep.
And what is East Wind?
East Wind is this company that I started in 1980, designing and building traditional Japanese houses. That's what we do. We do the design work.
Oh, I was going to say, when I was there last, you were working on the Japanese tea garden in Golden Gate Park. You were doing a big job for.
That's right. We were building a bridge or something. I don't know. We did a bunch of stuff there. But basically, it's not Len Brackett. It's East Wind is the name of the company. I didn't want to name it after myself. So it's East Wind Higashikaze Inc., meaning East Wind Inc. And we design and build Japanese houses, architecture, stuff. So I never wanted to run a company. Running a company sucks. I mean, it's really a drag. And being a CEO is totally not interesting to me. But I wanted to build pretty buildings, pretty things. I wanted to make pretty things. And the only way to do it was to start a company and to do the whole business thing. So I did, but I never liked doing it. And now I've been able to hand it to Matthew, and I can just work in the shop, which is what I always wanted to do anyway. And I don't have to work a 40-hour week. I can work as much as I want or as little as I want. So as long as the indignities of age haven't completely undercut me, I'll keep doing that. And in between time, I'm still doing falconry. I have a free goshawk, Phoebe, who is now 12 years old, who has not been restrained in any way for over 11 years. And she's free.
For over 11 years? 11 years?
Yeah. And she's free, and she has about 100 square mile range. But an hour, or less than an hour ago, 40 minutes ago, she came and landed on my fist. And I gave her some food, and she flew off with it. And she's my friend. So she wakes me up in the morning, yells at me out in through the window. She's this big goshawk. I mean, she's bigger than a red tail. and she wants to go hunting or something. So, and 2 years ago, I raised a baby with her. I built a nest in a tree. I took a ladder and went up into a tree and started making a nest, and she came and watched me for about a day and a half. She perched like 6 feet away and just watched me climb down the ladder, go get some sticks, bring them up, put them into the nest, go down the ladder, go get more sticks. And after about a day and a half, she flew off. And I thought, okay, well, she's tired of me making a nest. And she came back with a stick in her mouth. And she started making the nest, and I backed off. And we ended up with about a 4-foot diameter, 1.5 feet deep nest. And we raised a baby together, which has never been done. So she is a falconry bird, but she's totally free. If she decides she's done with me, she just fly away and fly off forever. I don't.
Where did she find her mate?
Locally, I live in good goshawk habitat. So, admittedly, it's a kind of a goofy way to spend your free time, but I get a lot of yayas out of it. I love doing it. I mean, hanging out with the top aerial predator in this area is quite a remarkable thing. Today she took off and was chasing all the ravens out. The ravens hate her. She hates the ravens, so they have a kind of rivalry going on. And I saw her chasing a raven today. She probably caught it and killed it, because she can fly circles around most critters. She's a very amazing flyer and very aggressive. Goshawks are. There's a wonderful book, if you are interested, called H is for Hawk, which is by Helen McDonald, who's a very experienced falconess. And everything she says about goshawks is true in that book. It's wonderful. She gets a goshawk named Mabel, that she names Mabel. And everything she says is accurate. One of the points she made, she said, yeah, goshawks are a cross between a flaming torch and an assault rifle.
Wow.
Yeah, so that I do that. And I'm on the grand jury for Nevada County. California has a requirement for civil grand juries. This is not a criminal grand jury. This is a civil grand jury where basically it looks after government. Any place taxpayers' money goes, we investigate. So I'm on the civil grand jury, and I volunteered as a poll worker during the election. And what else am I doing? Well, that's it. And of course, Sylvan and Aya, my 2 kids. Aya is a professional photographer and is now working on her 15th cookbook. And Sylvan runs Rintaro, which is this very fancy. Well, my son Sylvan was just nominated for a James Beard Award.
For what?
A James Beard Award.
Oh.
Pretty fancy. And Rintaro, Bon Appetit called his restaurant that we did all the work in. We built a Japanese restaurant for him. It's very pretty. And
where?
In San Francisco. On 14th Street, at Folsom and 14th Street. And Bon Appetit called it one of the 10 best new restaurants in the United States.
Wow.
Pretty cool, huh?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Brackett cooking mafia is doing just great. Aya's specialty is cookbooks.
Yeah.
My daughter Aya's specialty is photographing for cookbooks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And how old are they?
Oh, God, how old are they? Let's see. I was born in 19. God, when was she born? 1980. So Aya is 42, and Sylvan is 4 years older at 46.
Oh,
Can you fucking believe it?
oh.
I have a kid that's almost 50 years old. Jesus. And I had kids late.
Yeah. Yeah, Kelly is 48. Yeah. But I got a 30-year-old.
What are you doing?
Me? Well, I work on Cuke Archives, preserving the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his. So you're one of them. And it's a giant oral written history that goes from preserving Suzuki's lectures to finding out about goshawks. I like to know what people are doing now, people who pass through,
Yeah.
But I'd like to hear about other things too, like with you were involved in the sitting group at Reed
Yes.
College.
Yeah.
So I have a whole page on Cuke.com just for that group.
Oh, really?
I have quite a bit out of that.
Layla and Jim first, and yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've got a list of people. You might look at it at some point and add some. There's so many people came to or through Zen Center from Reed. It's unbelievable. And the history there with Lloyd Reynolds, Gary Snyder, Philip Whalen, you, just on and on.
And Lloyd Reynolds, yeah, he was just an amazing, amazing teacher. He changed the lives of hundreds of people, I think.
Yeah.
He was profound, wonderful. Let me give you.
Yeah, go on.
I'll give you a little background on the Zendo thing. After my freshman year at Reed, we wanted to move off campus. All my close friends, Bob Walheim, David Simon, me, Laura Schill, and Frank Poliak. And there was a house that we rented called the Cosmos. That was kind of the name that the student body at Reed had bestowed upon this particular house, which was an old house, just very airy, no real heat, freeze-ass cold in the winter. And as students, we didn't have enough money to heat it, so we just froze all winter. And we took the fancy living room, and we turned it into, and we all decided to turn it into a Zendo. So we got some tatami mats, and we made a Buddha out of cement, which was kind of a lump, and that was our Buddha. And a bunch of zafu and zabuton. And we had sitting there every morning. So every morning, starting at 6 to 7, we had zazen and kinhin. And students from all over came over in the morning to have zazen. And it was very informal. None of us were teachers. None of us had any aspirations to be priests. But we just wanted to sit. So after a while, I ended up living. I moved, and other people moved into the house, and the Zendo quit. But apparently, it kept going somewhere. And I moved out to the Columbia River Gorge in this amazingly beautiful place. I've always lived in these beautiful places. It's kind of astounding. I mean, I live in one of the most beautiful places on the planet, I think, right here. And there I was living, 500 feet above the Columbia River, looking down on the Columbia River, 2 miles from a 600-foot waterfall. I mean,
Mm.
amazing place. Uh,
Mm.
so after I moved out to the gorge, I don't know what happened. I kept sitting all by myself, but I wasn't about to drive to town every morning for sunset. So, and I kind of lost track of what happened with the Zen. But essentially, it started in our house. And then the summer before I came back, the summer before we set up the Zendo was the summer that I met you at Tassajara.
Right. Now, what summer did you meet me in Tassajara?
Summer of 67.
That's what I thought. You know what I remember?
Yeah.
I remember you playing a guitar.
Yeah, that's right. I used to be a pretty good guitar player, but I haven't played for
Yeah,
decades.
you were.
Well, no longer.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
longer. I can't even, I can't. Once I got started as an apprentice in Kyoto, I mean, I was working 12-hour days and 7 days
Yeah.
a week, and I had a day off, every month or two. So I didn't have a whole lot of free time, and basically every minute counted when I wasn't working. I mean, I had 12 hours when I wasn't working a day, and that had to be spent part of it commuting and cooking and bathing. I was lucky to get sleep. So I didn't play the guitar anymore. And I just lost it and never picked it up again. So I pick up the guitar now, and I know what I want to do, but I can't do it.
So you were with this group. They got this building, and you decided to sit.
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Wanting to sit?
Yeah, I mean, how did anybody know about it, or how did anybody know the word zazen,
I happen,
what? There's.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I happen to have a sister who was married to Richard Baker.
Oh yes. Well, tell us about that.
Well, that had an effect. The first time I met Dick Baker, you're going to find this amusing. I grew up in Minnesota on a big lake called Minnetonka, where my family is one of the first white people to ever live on that lake. We've been there for over 170 years on Lake Minnetonka. The Bracketts have been. And we lived on the water. And Jenny'd been talking about this guy that she was just totally besotted with, Richard Baker. And it was summer, and he came to visit. And when he arrived, I was out on water skis. I was out on a slalom ski, and my friends were pulling me around in a motorboat. And he walked out on the deck, and I cut in at the deck, and I totally soaked him. I made a big cut and absolutely almost washed him off the dock.
Excellent.
That was my introduction to Richard Baker.
Did you do it on purpose?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I was 15 years old,
Did you know who he was?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, well, this is a nice way to welcome him. It wasn't hostile. It was just, it wasn't hostile. It was kind of like, okay, let's play. It was playful. And it made a deep impression on Dick. He reminds me of it whenever I see him. He thought that was... So, and he was, and I was, as a high school student, I found Zen very intriguing. I found the Abrahamic God kind of contemptible, really awful. I mean, what a terrible God. I mean, really. The kind of unbelievable, horrible things that this Abrahamic God does I mean, he's just
Yeah.
a nasty piece of work. And even as a high school student, I was thinking, this Abrahamic God is just bullshit. This is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It leads to all kinds of pain for all kinds of people, buying into this crap. This eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, et cetera, go on and on. Abel and killing his children, and oh my God, these awful things.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this whole Judeo-Christian thing is fucked. That was my attitude.
Well, yeah. One comment here. Jesus, one of his driving ambitions was to get rid of that.
That's right.
He specifically said, "It said an eye, for a tooth for a tooth," but that is not our way, or what? I don't remember how he said it.
Well, especially the Old Testament God. Yeah, the Old Testament God is particularly nasty.
Yeah.
But then, I look at the Catholic Church and the popes and the Borgias and oh my God, the horrible history of the Catholic Church is kind of like appalling. And
yes.
then I look at these Muslims, these frantic, freaky, blow themselves up Muslims. I mean, what? God, you wish these people give it a rest. So I was not into. I had a very, very, even as a high school student, from the time I was about sophomore in high school, a very low opinion of the Catholic Church, of Christian Church, of any Abrahamic religion. I mean,
right.
I found Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all of them contemptible. I mean, in my own view, in a lot of ways. And of course, the message was profound. I mean, the message of forgiveness is profound. It's amazing. But still, the corruption of the church, or of Islam, or of the imams, or of the whatever, of the, I found it appalling. So Zen was very interesting because it basically, I mean, in my view, said, listen, this deistic worship is stupid. Burn the Buddha, and that really appealed to me. I thought, okay, they're saying we don't have answers to this. We can't give you answers. The answers are in yourself. And that all I found, the answers are in yourself, meaning in your understanding. And I found that really profound and interesting and intriguing. So from the time I was a high school student, and of course, Dick Baker had something to do with it. I wish I had known about Alan Watts at the time. I would have been reading it, but I didn't. It wasn't until much later that I learned about Alan Watts. I thought this is really intriguing and interesting. Oh, you have a little dog.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. That's our she's our protection here. She guards the borders and makes sure we're not being attacked.
Oh, really? Which is not likely to happen in Bali, right? Okay.
No, very low crime rate here. Very, very low.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as low as Japan, but it's very low. It's comparable, You can walk at night here in the dark and not worry. And,
nobody.
Katrinka can walk. She'll walk alone home in the dark, and I won't think anything of it.
Yeah. Good.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did you get into Buddhism? You're from Texas, right?
Yeah.
Where in Texas?
Fort Worth. Well, I was fortunate. I grew up in a family that was into sort of mind-only New Thought Christianity. It was non-theistic, basically. sort of like out of Emerson, Thoreau, with influence from Buddhism and
Good. Sounds great.
Hinduism,
Hmm.
that sort of thing. Um, and and so I entered into the flow of LSD and hippiedom, and ran into Zen Center, and just it all made sense to me. And I didn't really have anything to give up,
Yeah.
because my father would tell me, well, God isn't. He didn't have to say God isn't something, blah blah, because we were never taught that. He would say, God is thought.
Mhm.
God is your mind, and he'd say, but basically, you don't know how lucky you are. You weren't taught to believe in God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, God is everywhere. I mean, this
Yeah,
polemic that you just heard me about Abrahamic religions. I mean, it should be
yeah,
tempered. I mean, I recognize that there
yeah.
are some really
It's
profound elements of these Abrahamic religions too. It's,
Yeah,
it's
yes, yes. They're there, but institutions and people, individuals seeking power and power over others distort everything.
there you go. Yeah,
Institutions are,
it's all been Trumpified.
and yeah, yeah.
Religion has been
Um,
Trumpified.
um, so that's interesting. So did you come to Zen Center and visit Jenny? I mean, were you at did you were you at Sokoji or that, or meet Suzuki
Oh yeah.
early on or
Well, I mean, I
anything?
met Suzuki Roshi. The first year I went to Reed was 1966, and
Oh yeah.
I was this Minnesota kid, and I came out to visit Jenny and Dick before I headed up to Portland.
Yeah.
And that was a profound 2 weeks that I spent with them. I mean, essentially, I grew up kind of in the country, in a very well-to-do suburb of Minneapolis, Lake Minnetonka, which is now kind of cheesy. But when I was a kid, well, even when I was a kid, it was still pretty shishi, actually. And San Francisco blew my mind. I mean, and Dick at one point, for the first 2 or 3 days or so that I was there, I remember I was kind of intimidated. I didn't, San Francisco was kind of intimidating to me because it was this big city. And and I hadn't spent a lot of time in big cities. It's not as though I'd never had spent time in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Of course I had, but I wasn't a resident of a big city. So, I hung around their apartment on 2518 Fillmore. God, I still remember the address.
Oh.
Isn't that something? That was the address of their place, 2518 Fillmore. They'd come home. Dick would come back. He was at University. He was at UC Berkeley, running these conferences that he did. The LSD conference, the media conference, and a bunch of conferences. So Dick was an employee at the University of California. Jenny was kind of heading up a Montessori school. Had started one. And they come back and they'd say, well, what'd you do today? And I said, well, I didn't do much. I kind of hung around the apartment and read the book magazine. Well, after about 3 days, Dick at one point kind of lost it with me. He said, I don't believe you that you'd come to one of the most important cities in America, San Francisco, and you stay in the apartment. What is the matter with you? I mean, if it were me, I'd have walked over this whole goddamn city by now, or I'd have gotten a good start on it. And he said, get out of this apartment and go find out what's out there. Well, the whole hippie thing was getting started. Haight-Ashbury was like mind-blowing. I'd never seen anything like that, not in Minnesota, believe me. And basically one of the things he said is go out and get on a bus, and wherever it goes, get off the bus and walk around. And he said, keep 10, 15 bucks in your pocket. And if you really are lost, you don't know how to get back, just hail a taxi and tell them to take you to 2518 Fillmore. Oh, okay. That's okay. So I did. Walked all over San Francisco then for like 10 days. And I got cruised, and, I remember I came back from Virginia. It was great hilarity, Virginia. I met this really nice guy, and he said he wanted to take me back to his apartment. And, I didn't know what the hell was going on. Came back, and I said, I met this really nice guy, and he invited me back to my apartment, but I felt I had to get back quickly, so I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I got to go get back. And Benny and Dick burst into hysterical laughter, and they said, you just got cruised, Lenny. I said, cruised? What do you mean? The guy was gay, and he wanted a sexual encounter with you. I said, oh, my God. Oh, man. Yeah, it was great. And then I went up to Reed.
Wait, you haven't talked about meeting Suzuki.
Oh, right. Well, and I went to Sokoji, and I sat for the first time.
With Dick or by yourself or what?
Dick took me to Sokoji, and I sat in the balcony up there.
Yeah.
That's where the Zen everybody sat, if I recall. And I remember I got whacked by the Kisaku. I remember I got hit with a stick, Kisaku. Dick introduced me to Suzuki Roshi, and I didn't know what to make of him. I mean, it was how do you do, I'm sure. And it wasn't until a couple of years later when I was at Tassajara that I realized, whoa, this guy, he's like from some other planet. I don't know where he's coming from, but wherever it is, it's a pretty good place. He's an amazing man. He knows a lot of stuff that most people don't know. And he's one of the, and I've met, since then, I've known or met a number of Roshis in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think none of them impressed me the way Suzuki Roshi did. I met some of them quite famous Roshis. What's this guy I mentioned? What's his name? He's the one that went down into the Southern Pacific, where a whole bunch of Japanese soldiers had been killed, and did a whole lot.
You mean Mumon Yamada?
Mumon Yamada Roshi. And Mumon Roshi and Suzuki Roshi were kind of, I thought, in much the same realm. I was quite impressed with Mumon Roshi.
That's how Dick felt, too.
Yeah, I really thought Mumon Roshi was quite wonderful. And I felt Suzuki Roshi was, but I've known other Roshis whom I liked and respected and thought were really interesting, good people. But they didn't kind of blow my socks off the way Mumon Roshi and Suzuki Roshi did. There was something about both those two guys that was really quite profound. And I didn't realize it until I was at Tassajara for a good part of the summer. Because I remember, if you recall, I was a Zen book. I was in the kitchen with Ed Brown. And and Alan Winter. Alan was, he was a pastry chef.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I was there a lot because I was running the dining room.
there you go. Yeah, and I was the head
Yeah,
Zendo cook. I was the head cook for the Zendo for the students.
yeah,
You know, eating an awful lot of that dreadful, what is it? That dreadful mishmash of whatever was left over got thrown into a pot with a bunch of rice and then served for
Oh,
breakfast.
our
The
gruel,
that
yes.
gruel, oh my God. And, half the time it was, high. And but,
Yeah.
and pressure cooking soybeans and making 40 loaves of bread a day and all that stuff.
Mm.
Yeah. And then but I do remember Suzuki. Yeah, he really impressed me. And it's like, wow. But I never really was his student because I wasn't there long enough. And I don't even think he knew who I was, really. Well, he knew who I was. He knew I was with Dick, that I was
Yeah.
associated with Dick and Jimmy. But, and I really didn't want whatever happened in Center to be because of who I was related to. I mean, nepotism is not very attractive. And I didn't want that, so I tried to make it on my own and not. But I'm sure that there are a number of people that knew that I was associated with those two, and
Well, there was never any problem with that.
I
Nothing.
did never feel that way. One thing I will
No.
recall when I first got there, we were building the stone wall for the new kitchen. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I remember I had just arrived, and Dan Welch took me under his arm and just kind of really helped me out, and introduced me to people and told me how things were, and was just this wonderful kind of guardian angel. He was this sweet, sweet guy. And I'll never forget it. He was so kind to me. I think a lot of other people were kind of like, who is this kid? Oh, God, he's Dick's brother-in-law. Oh, God, we're going to have to deal with this. Dan was totally welcoming. and I didn't hostility or anything from other people, but I was very aware that, I had to establish my own credibility. I didn't want to end up being Dick Baker's brother-in-law. So anyway, and then I, at one point, ended up in the kitchen, and rather enjoyed it. And they said, well, do you want to cook for the students eventually? And I said, sure. I said, you're going to have to give me a little guidance here. And Ed said, sure, of course I will. So that was great. So I cooked for the students. And then Sammy Schrager, who ended up being part of the Cosmos House, we lived there for 2 years, actually. Sammy came downstairs. And Ricky Levine, who was Sammy's dear close old friend, he came down. And Layla, and Jim Bockhorst, and all those people that were old friends of mine at Reed. But a lot of it is just, Suzuki Roshi really, he's one of the one or two people that I've met in my life. Well, aside from my carpentry teachers, who I think they gave me my life. Hide-san, who was a carpenter, and my teacher. Who's my teacher.
Your teacher, what sort of teacher? Give us a context here, would you?
Okay, well, there I was in Kyoto, and I was teaching English, so I could make a living teaching 1 or 2 days a week, teaching English. And then I had a lot of free time. So I went around looking. I wanted to sit zazen. I wanted to find some place to sit. So I went up to Antaiji. Oh, God, Antaiji was like crazy. That was, they sold the temple and built, and they all moved off into the woods and built this temple out in the middle of nowhere. And they were the ones that had 9-month-long sessions. Can you imagine it? Session that would go on for 9 fucking months.
Wow.
And the prime minister would show up to give his respects to the Roshi, and the Roshi would say, "Sorry, I can't meet you. I'm too busy." It was a very serious. It was a Soto place, which is odd because it was right in Kyoto. Because mostly it's Rinzai, right? And that was a little too heavy for me. I mean, I didn't want to be a monk. I just wanted to sit in the morning, to lay practice. And I didn't want to get in too deep. I wasn't into being a monk. The only other place I could sit was at Daitokuji, at Ryokoin. And Kabori Roshi was the Roshi at Ryokoin, which is one of the sub-temples at Daitokuji.
Right.
And I went to ask the Roshi, "May I sit here?" And he said, "You can sit here, but the zendo is small. We don't have a lot of space. So if you're going to sit, I want you to come and sit. But if you're not going to sit, then please don't take a space." Basically saying, either do it or don't. So I said, "I'll do it." So from that moment on, I was very conscientious to make sure that I was always at zazen at 5 in the morning. And we'd sit from 5 to 7. And then I was always there from 7 to 9 to sit in the evening. And I never
Wow.
missed. And I never missed.
What year was this?
1970. And then I learned that if you're now Ryokoin is one of the most famous of the sub-temples at Daitokuji. This little sub-temple has 5 national treasures in it. Can you believe it? The Zendo was a national treasure. The Mitan is Kabori Inshu's tea room. It's one of 2 national treasure tea rooms in the whole country. Tea room as opposed to tea house. Daitokuji is where the tea ceremony kind of Sen no Rikyu came from there. And also the 5 persimmons, that famous Zenga, that famous Zen painting of the 5 persimmons by Muti. And the other one with the monkey is there. And the Watari Roka at Ryokoin is a national treasure, as is the Kabutobon, the main gate into this little temple. I mean, it's this extraordinary place.
Yeah, I want to add that Sen no Rikyu is the founder of tea ceremony in Japan.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, I wanted to say that, but there were going to be people listening that, didn't know that.
Yeah. So, and Kabori Roshi, it turned out, was the Grand Master of the Enshu school of tea. There's Ura Senke, Omote Senke, and Enshu. Well, Enshu is the tea ceremony associated with Kabori Enshu, who designed Tsuruga Imperial Villa and Rio, what is it? The most famous garden in Japan, Rio Anji.
Oh, yeah.
Kabori Enshu was I'm famous guy. Well, his direct descendant was Kobori Roshi. And Kobori Roshi,
Oh, really?
Ironically, interestingly, had gone to Stanford, graduated from Stanford in the 30s.
Really?
Can you believe that? Yeah.
No,
So
I had no idea.
he's very good English. But he insisted that we speak Japanese. And Gary, at one point, Gary Snyder, an old friend of mine, Gary's an old buddy of mine. I've known Gary since the 60s. And he's my neighbor. He lives 4 or 5 miles from here. Gary said, Kobori Roshi, yeah, he's kind of like still living in the Edo period. Although he was very big and very aware of everything that was happening politically in the world. And at one point he asked me, what about Vietnam? And I said, well, he said, shouldn't you be in the army? And I said, well, I burned my draft card. He said, oh. And he said, aren't you supposed to fight for your country? And I said, not if it's an immoral war, it's not. No. If I'd been a Japanese, I would have burned my draft card too, and I never would have gone to China. And he kind of, okay.
Right.
And we would have, so I learned that if you're at Ryoko Inn, you could volunteer to come and just work in the gardens, which is like wonderful because it's just this amazing place. And, you go pull every little grass that comes up in the moss garden. Every little shoot of grass that comes up, you pull it out. And I would go and volunteer to work there. Well, if you spend the day helping out at the temple, then you'd have dinner with the Roshi and his disciples, and sit around in Irori, which is an open fire pit in the middle of the floor, and drink sake and eat this wonderful dinner that is amazing. His wife was really quite a remarkable woman. Oksan, she was fantastic. Anyway, for some reason I wasn't intimidated by him particularly. I mean, I liked him, and I think he liked me, and I think he trusted me because I did what I promised I'd do. And at one point in Doksan, he asked me, well, now that you're here in Japan, what do you want to do? And I blurted out, I want to study temple carpentry. And he went, well, I could introduce you to the best carpenter in Japan, he said. And I went back, and Dick and Jenny were there, and I told Dick what Kobori Roshi had said. He said, did he really say that? And I said, yes. And I said, who is this guy? And Dick said, oh, he's just the Archbishop of Canterbury equivalent in Japan. He knows the emperor, and the prime minister comes to visit, and, he knows everybody who's anybody in Japan. He's a friend of Koei Kanjuro and Hamada and all these guys. He's very much part of the Mingei movement. This guy, is famous all over Japan. I said, oh my God, okay. And he said, if he said he could introduce you to the best carpenter in Japan, he probably can. So then I had 6 months to wait until I could start carpentry. So I got a job working doing arbeito, which is basically part-time work, which ended up being full-time work.
Doing what?
As a plasterer. Working with a plasterer, because I lived in a thatched roof farmhouse out of town. And the local village had a plasterer that I ended up working for, which was very interesting. And then I could finally start with Hide-san, who was the man that Kobori Roshi was talking about. I later found out that Hide-san has a national reputation. He's one of the few carpenters in Japan that can actually do tea houses and temple work, which are two specialties within the carpentry world. And they're both of them kind of the pinnacle of the craft world in Japan. Miyadaiku temple carpenters in Japan are very highly regarded. And so I worked with Hide-san, and they stuck me with Hide-san. And I worked with him for 5 or 6 years. And we came back and did Shoboan, which was this little Japanese house that we brought back from Japan, if you recall. This was, yeah. And that's when my introduction to Nevada City happened. And I asked Lloyd Reynolds, he loved what I was doing as a carpenter, doing Japanese carpentry. And I asked him at one point, I said, well, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to build Japanese houses. He said, well, you have to live in California. You can't do it in Oregon. He said, you have to have a clientele, and you will find a clientele in California, but you will probably be able to pull it off in Oregon. So that's part of the reason I ended up here in Nevada City. Anyway, when I went back after Shoboan, Hide-san, in my absence, had hurt his back and couldn't work. And Mitsuji-san, who was the head of the company that we work for, Kamiyama Kovakin, we really would love to have you come back and continue to work at Kamiyama, but we don't have a teacher that we really feel you need to have a very highly skilled teacher to teach you, because you need to be working at a high level. You're not there yet, but you need to have a really skilled. So I recommend that you go off and see if you can find a job working at a temple outfit. Well, I had a friend named Hasegawa-san who was a temple carpenter at Hosomigumi. And Hasegawa-san introduced me to Hosomi-san. And I ended up working at Hosomigumi. And then Hosomi-san knew about Hide-san. And he knew that I'd have been associated with him. He said, is there any way you can get Hide-san to come here? And I said, yes, I'm sure. And Hide-san's back was better, and he came and ended up as the head carpenter at Hosomigumi. And they stuck me with him again. So I've been the recipient of just an enormous amount of kindness and goodwill and kindness. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say these people gave me my life. And last time I was in Japan, I told them so. Hosomi-san died just recently, but I met with him and Hide-san, and I said, you two have given me my life. I will do anything for you. Anything, I will do it if I can. If you want all my money, I'll give it to you. If you, whatever. I owe you everything. See, Japan had an effect upon me. I worked there as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old. And, for us now at this age, 21-year-olds are still kids. Well, when you're that young, you're still flexible. You're still soft. You're not rigid as older people get.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst, I wasn't aware of it, but now I can look back and I can see that Japan kind of imprinted in me a kind of morality and an ethical sense that I still believe in. Those things about being grateful and of owing people who have done you great kindnesses, and for being aware that we are all each other's teachers in some, I think, profound way. Even people that are mean to us or bad to us, in some ways you can say they're our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Japan had a huge, and you know, I was there for 7 years. A long time. And I was married to Japanese. And I was in way over my head. I mean, I like to say that I had no idea what I was getting into. I just kind of hoped. I had no idea who my teacher was, what it's going to be like. You know?
Yeah.
So I just kind of held my nose and, you know, held my breath and plugged my nose and jumped. And I didn't land on the rocks. I landed in amongst this extraordinarily skilled, incredibly kind, generous people.
Well, I've seen a little, I've seen some results of your skills, your house in Nevada City, and the Zendo at Johanneshof in the Black Forest of Germany. That's a beautiful Zendo.
Oh, thank you. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad. So you got to see that. That's great. Because that was a pretty Zendo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've sat in the Zendo a couple of times. I mean, more than a couple of times, but 2 different periods.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great Zendo. I love it. And, yeah, I love the way, you know, Dick has been very forceful there in creating the sort of form he wanted, just like he was at Zen Center, like getting them to buy that building that it went in. Everybody was against it. Well, there was a time when he wanted us to get Green Gulch, and everyone was against it.
Yeah.
You know, we really needed to have what I call the imperial period at Zen Center. And personally, I miss it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he really, I mean, how would I say? You know, during this whole thing that happened at Zen Center, this big mess in the 80s, you know, it was Paul, what's his name? Paul Hawken and Andy Hawken and all that mess. And a whole lot of people abandoned him. And I remember sitting with him 2 days after it broke. And we were at the something grill, in San Francisco. Down there on just below the Page Street building. Anyway, it doesn't make a difference what restaurant we were in. And I looked at him. We'd both had a martini or something. And I looked at him and I said, Dick, did you do this on purpose? Long pause. And he said, yeah, maybe I did. I mean, Dick was under such pressure. God. I mean, part of it was self-generated, of course. I mean, it was, you know, he made that choice. But, and he shouldn't have been fucking his anjas. I mean, that really is not good. But, he also was doing Doksan for like 200 and some people. For God's sake, can you imagine being a psychoanalyst for 200 people? I mean, what? his sister had killed herself
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
couldn't give her enough time. I mean, that's the way he feels.
Mm-hmm.
It was an inhuman existence that he was living in those ways. And it's true, his orbit was getting greater and greater and getting crazier and crazier. But still, I kind of came to the conclusion and said, okay, what has his effect been on the people that he's had contact with? Forget all this other stuff. Has he improved the lives of the people that he's had contact with? And in most cases, yes. The answer to that was yes. And that really, as far as I'm concerned, is where the rubber hit the road. That really
Yeah.
Has he been compassionate and helped other people? Absolutely. So forget all this other bullshit. Yes, he's not perfect. Okay, we get it. Nobody's perfect. Yes, I could, if you asked me to, I could list all of the things about Richard Baker that I find faulty. But basically, he has been a positive influence on the lives of hundreds of people. And that's all that counts in my book.
Yeah.
The rest of it's bullshit.
Well, everybody who enjoys being at Zen Center, at Tassajara, at Green Gulch, even at Page Street, which you didn't start, but it wouldn't have been there if Zen Center hadn't have continued, owes something to him.
Yeah, exactly. So he's a faulty teacher. He's not a faulty teacher. He's a teacher with faults. Okay. Welcome to the club. We're all faulty on some level. So okay.
You went to Japan. Did you go to visit him and Jenny or what?
Well,
when you went
my
there,
intention was to go around the world. And I figured, well, somehow or another, I'll figure it out. And I figured, well, the best way to do it is just go to Japan. And it happened that Jenny and Dick were at Gary's old house on 31 Nishineyama-cho in Kitaku in the northern part of Kyoto. And they
you mean the one by Myoshinji?
No, this was before that. This was north of Daitokuji. It's do you know Kyoto at all? You know where Kitauji and Kitayama are?
Yeah.
Well,
that's why
I
when you said northern, see, the only home I knew was the one that Nakamura lived. I stayed there one night with Ursula.
There you go, Ursula. Right, Ursula. I wonder whatever happened to Ursula. Do you have any idea?
Oh, she's in. She married a guy named Daijo who'd was a disciple of the head of he was had a sub temple where Ryoanji is, and he was head of Hanazono, the Rinzai University, and was a big shot. And he had been at a temple where I was studying there, and they came and started a Zen group up in Gerberville, north of San Francisco, Garberville. Yeah, Garberville. And Daijo, he died, like 5 years ago or something, and she got transmission. He didn't, from their teacher. I've been with their teacher. I can't remember his name. Beautiful little temple. Very small.
How great. So she's in California.
Yeah, she's up there. Daijo got really mad at me. He was always mad at me. And he never forgave me for writing about him and thank you and okay. And I said, nothing bad. And I didn't even point out that I didn't mention that he was kicked out of the monastery where I was for hitting a
Uh-huh.
monk. I didn't say anything and I didn't use his real name,
Yeah.
but he really was mad. And I learned that there were two people there that were mad at me. You got to be careful
So
mentioning people like that.
is
But anyway, yeah, she's
Ursula
there.
still in
So I knew
carpentry?
that how. Huh? So I imagine she's still there teaching in Garberville. I don't know. I never had any contact with them because all I'd ever hear is people coming down and say, "Oh, I mentioned you to Daijo," and he said, "Oh, he's a bad Zen Buddha." He would always start getting mad.
Oh, God.
Uh,
Okay.
so I was afraid to go. I should have gone and
Okay.
apologized.
Well,
But
he should.
yeah.
He should learn to let it go.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
used to visit him in that temple. I can't remember the name of it or the teacher. I could find it somewhere. But anyway, yeah, when you said northern Kyoto, Gary's house, that was all before my time.
Yeah. Well,
I
basically, Nakamoto-san lived upstairs in this house in Shiniyamato, and
mhm.
Gary had the downstairs. And Gary came back to America, and Dick and Ginny took their place. And I stayed with them while Dick was going through transmission with Suzuki Roshi. And at one point, it was a little too much. And Dick said, you really got to find your own place because it's pretty intense. And it was pretty intense. So Suzuki Roshi in Japan. And there was all kinds of stuff going on. And I was kind of in the middle of it. And I had no idea what the hell was going on. And so I left. Then they went, let's see, how did this work? That's right. They came back to the States. Suzuki Roshi was sick. And they came back to the States, and Biva and I took over the house.
Oh.
And we lived in that house with Nakamoto-san upstairs. Nakamoto-san really liked me. I think
That's saying something.
She really liked me. I think it was that I was deeply involved in carpentry. I mean, I was in completely, I was, all 4 feet and had everything into it. And I was obsessed with it. And I was working incredibly long hours. And I'd come back just ragged, after I hadn't had a day off for a month or 2 months. I've been working 10 days a week starting at 7 in the morning and working till 7 at night. Every goddamn day. And she just really respected that. And that I wouldn't quit. And I think she just really liked me. Ginny told me that Nakamoto-san just loved me. She just thought I was wonderful. And Biva too. So she was my good buddy. And we had wonderful times together. Just conversation. And she's the one that told me, she said, I said, you're teaching Jerry Fuller, tea ceremony. And I said, how's he doing? And she said, oh, he's doing wonderfully. He's learning it so fast. I said, that's great. And she said, no, that's not good. And I said, but he's learning fast. That's good, isn't it? She said, no. She said, if he's really going to be good, he has to learn how to do it all wrong and then learn how to do it right. He learns how to do it right away. So his understanding is shallow. And to do tea ceremony right, you have to learn how to do it wrong. You had to not learn how you had to do it wrong and then learn how to do it right. And I thought that was always kind of another one of those profound things she said to me. And then she said, Lenny, if you want to be a good carpenter, you have to study everything. Everything. Philosophy and music and art and carpentry and woodworking and forestry and sawmilling, and you have to study, astrology and astronomy and everything. You have to know everything, which I thought was another amazing thing for her to tell me. I've had amazing teachers. I mean, I've been very, very fortunate. I kind of wonder how in the world, how did I pull that off? How did I have these amazing people that took me under the wing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucky us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
people.
appreciate that. Yeah. Well, Len, I think maybe we should wrap it up here.
Well, it's delight talking to you. I wish we'd asked more about you. I mean,
No. We can talk later about me.
I would
That's
like
not
to
the
talk
point.
later about you. I mean, you're one of my favorite eccentric people. I mean, all my good friends are all eccentrics. And I freely admit that I am too. And I just glory in my eccentric friends.
Did you ever know Fred Harriman in Takako? What's his wife? Tayako. His wife there in
No.
They lived over in. He was in Japan 17 years. They lived in Grass Valley, and he's done lots of translating for me of interviews. I do interviews in Japan in Japanese, but my Japanese was good enough to ask the questions and get them to keep going, but not good enough to understand everything they were saying at all. But I understood a lot of it. And Fred, for Crooked Cucumber, he did a lot of that. He still helps me. And he lives up in, he used to live there. He lives up like, I don't know, Whidbey Island or one of those places way up north.
I see.
What about, I have a good friend.
I built a house in Whidbey Island.
Really? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if it's with, I can't remember exactly where one of those islands.
Up there, yeah.
I'd go up there and see Silas and Nils at Port Townsend, and.
Oh, Silas is in Port Townsend?
Oh, he's been there forever.
Oh,
he's been there forever. Yeah.
Wow.
And different people. There's another old friend of mine there, Jake, in Nevada City, who has Kodo Arts.
Oh, yes, right. And I've never met him, although we know each other through the grapevine.
Hey, he's there, what, a third of the year or whenever he's there. I don't know. Go say hello to him, man. He's a really cool guy. He's one of my best friends in Kyoto, and he comes here. I've seen him several times here, 2 or 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I will make an effort. Next time I know that Kodo Arts is happening, I will make a point of going to meet him.
Oh, yeah. He's a character. He's really interesting. And,
that's great.
He's been many, many, many years in Kyoto. Mm-hmm. Michael Katz took Dick Baker and Sophia. It's one of his daughters.
Sophia? Sophia or Sally?
Yeah.
Sophia.
To Jake's place there in Nevada City, and Dick got Michael bought Dick a bell, and then Dick's bought another bell from him now. And I got Dick to meet my Kyoto friends, Jake and then Jay and Kyoko, who ship Japanese, Balinese, Taiwanese artifacts, clothing, furniture, everything to Seattle, and live half time in Kyoto, right by the Philosopher's Walk, Genkakuji.
Yeah, right.
And and half time in Seattle.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's how I know Jake. All that. Yeah.
God, that's fantastic. Well, I mean, Dick was just here 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's when he bought the bell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when Michael bought him the bell.
Yeah, he was here with
He was there with Nicole.
with Nicole, right.
Oh, yeah, Bodden, Nicole Bodden.
Isn't she just a dream?
Oh, I love Nicole.
Isn't Nicole absolutely amazing?
Oh, yeah, she is.
She's just a fantastic woman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dick, I know Nicole pretty well. I like her a lot.
She's wonderful.
Yeah.
So Nicole,
and she's made his life, it's just, he has a great relief because she is who she is and does what she does. He's turning the whole thing over to her.
Well, I can't think of anybody better to turn it all over to than her. She's
great. She's so cool. Hey, you ought to listen to the podcast I did with her. It's terrific.
Oh, I would
her
love
story. Yeah.
Yeah,
she's great.
Yeah, she is such a trip.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, look, drop by, man. Love to have you. Love to see you.
Bali is not exactly on my way anywhere, but, certainly if you come to California, I would really look forward to seeing you up here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not impossible. I have no plans to go to America. I don't like to be in cars much anymore. I don't want to drive. It's so big. It's expensive. And
there's kind of a subliminal hostility that you see around, which is really...
Yeah. There are a lot of crazy people, angry people. But, the term run amok comes from Indonesia. And Bali is no exception. But there isn't anybody running amok now.
Yeah, good.
So it's like super peaceful and nice.
Well, our job is in Hawaii on the Big Island. And I'd always had a kind of we built 2 houses in Hawaii, and I kind of thought, well, I wasn't, it was okay until I went to the Big Island, and I just loved the Big Island. I mean, the way every time I had to make a left turn into oncoming traffic, somebody would stop and wave me across. It was a kind of an idea of how people are so respectful and so polite and so genuinely nice to each other. When I was in Hawaii, it was like, oh God, why
that's
is
good to
the
hear.
rest of the country like this? I was just so
There's a lot of traffic here, right? A lot less since COVID because there haven't been any tourists. But I have never seen an instance of road rage. Nothing. Zero.
Yeah. And just people were just so polite and so kind and considerate. It was like, kind of like Japan. I mean, Japan has kind of the same feeling too. It felt, I didn't ever feel in Japan when I was there anything but, I had 1 or 2 occasions, and all the time I was there, which was negative, but genuinely, people are so polite and considerate and decent to each other. And they're that way all over the world, actually. I mean, I'm thinking about these Ukrainians, these horrible things that are happening in Ukraine. and how everybody is stepping up to help their neighbors. It's just profound. It's wonderful. Yeah. Well, hopefully we all can aspire to that.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really good talking with you.
Yeah,
and
I loved it. It was really fun.
Yeah. So, look, I have a mental note. Make sure to look you up. I won't forget. I always want to see you if I go there. Okay.
Okay,
Well,
love you.
take care. Thanks a lot, Len.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This has been a Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Dogette Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.